Hello, everybody. Arash, can you hear me?
Yep, I'm here. I can hear you.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay. We're just waiting for people to stream in on X. I think here on Discord too, perhaps. So maybe we'll give it a second. Let's see.
Okay, no problem.
All right, I think we're probably ready to roll. So,
Cool.
Arash, everyone is so excited to hear from you. A quickly becoming legend within the Bittensor community. You have you have a nice presentation prepared, but I think that'll be pretty quick, right? I think
Yeah.
the goal here is to really field questions from the community and talk to the community directly. So I'll let you present, talk about your traditional background, your path to Bittensor. I think people are going to be very excited to hear that you've pretty much pivoted Tarvis, your prior company, and you're putting everything on red here with Bittensor, which is exciting. So if you want to go ahead and take the stage, there are slides live on Discord. The folks on Twitter, you won't see the slides, but honestly, you're not missing that much. A lot of it's just text based, so the audio
Mhm.
experience should be pretty good. But
I'll
anyway,
end up
Rob,
I'll end up explaining what's going on with the slides anyway for those that are just listening in.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
great. Well, you wanna go ahead and get started?
Yeah, let's see if I can share my screen here. Okay, let's just do entire screen. Okay, now you guys should be able to see my entire screen, and now you should be able to see this. And now when I press play, is it full screen?
Yep, there you go.
Okay,
Take it
perfect.
away.
Awesome. So very excited to be here. Thanks, James, for bringing me on and letting me talk a little bit about Taoshi and what we're building with the time series prediction subnet, which is our major first project or subnet that we're building on Bittensor. A little bit of background on me. I'll talk about in the slides a little bit too, but I've been in tech, working in Silicon Valley for the past about decade. I previously was at LinkedIn as a software engineering manager. I left that to pursue creating automated trading strategies via bots, and that's my creation of Tarvis Labs. So I had years of experience kind of trading by hand, and I was like, hey, I probably could automate a lot of these strategies. Being a software engineer, and yeah, so I pretty much just dove into it full time with the team, and we ended up creating a quite successful trading strategies. But I'll dive into it a little bit in the slides as well, again, as I said. But I think there's limitations to what you can do as you can't create as an individual or as a team. So I think that's the beauty of it and why it really brought us to this community. So again, our background, and again, some of these individuals we're bringing on right now in real time. We're growing very fast, but we are a team of skilled software engineers, background from NASA, again, myself from LinkedIn, Tarvis Labs, where we created automated trading strategies and bots, and Vexchange, which was a DEX built on VeChain. So we have a little bit of background from high tech, a little bit from heavy infrastructure, something like NASA, automated trading strategies and building those in various markets like Forex, crypto. So we're very familiar with creating trading strategies, limitations of various strategies, et cetera, and what it really takes to deliver very good strategies. And then Vexchange, which dives us into kind of the blockchain space and gives us kind of a nice combination of various skills, UI, backend, ML, combined all together. And again, we're still hiring aggressively, so this is just the picture as it looks now, but in the future, you can imagine the backgrounds of people that we're going to bring on is going to be even more diverse and effective for what we're trying to build. So SN8, which is Subnet 8, is a subnetwork just dedicated to time series prediction. Now, when we talk about time series prediction, there's a lot of different spaces or markets inside of time series prediction. When someone says time series prediction, really, what are you talking about? Are you talking about financial markets? Are you talking about sports betting? Are you talking about weather forecasting? I mean, there are so many different realms here, and they all have value. But For us, because of our background and our interests, we did want to start with financial markets because it just made the most sense for our background. And it's probably, I would say, the biggest prediction market that there is, and probably one of the most challenging markets to face. And so because of our background and because there are so many different avenues you can take with time series prediction, we chose to just concentrate on financial markets. So we don't want to split our attention across many. We want to concentrate all miner efforts on a single market, and so that's why we went towards financial markets. So kind of what with this approach towards a single market, towards just financial markets, what is our near-term vision and goal? Well, it's actually very similar to what we had at Harvest Labs. So we already have kind of our strategies built out with Harvest Labs, and so we're actually shifting our attention, just as James said, really to dedicate to Taoshi and what we're building on SN8. And so our goal is to create the most competitive and comprehensive algorithmic trading strategy in the market. So, in our opinion, this is actually only achievable on Bittensor. There is no other way to create this comprehensive strategy, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. Now, in terms of this near-term strategy, we are also inside of the world of financial markets, just concentrating on Bitcoin to start. So again, concentrate the efforts of miners on a single target, and that's Bitcoin. And so once we can accurately, relatively accurately provide, with some precision, predict the price movement of Bitcoin, we'll shift to more and more trade pairs, more and more markets. So you're going to see us shift to Ethereum, then other altcoins. Then we're going to shift to Forex, which is a massive market for trading. And then we'll end up in the stock market. So this is going to be we have a strategy here for developing this entire subnet. And then once we have financial markets pretty well tackled, and we have the strength of the mining community behind us, we will shift the attention to other topics or domains inside the world of time series prediction. And a lot of that kind of core logic actually to do these kind of things has already been developed and built into the subnet. So the ability to add different domains, understand different domains is already built in. And also there's a future potential where clients can actually send in their own kind of anonymized or their own data they want to have the network be, to train on, and then they can have it predict on those training sets. So the future here is very vast, and so we needed to start with a very specific use case and build up from that. So there is a short-term and a long-term vision here. So why Bittensor? So as I mentioned, trading and predicting markets is difficult and complex. Anybody that's ever traded understands these two things about trading and predicting. So that's the first part. And us personally, we have a lot of experience building these trading strategies. We understand the difficulty of this and how complex it can be. When we're talking about trading and predicting markets, anyone that's been in crypto, just say over the last 2-3 years, has understood how it can go from trending to ranging really ranging to trending really aggressively back to ranging. So, we got this massive bull market, we got this massive bear market, we get sideways movement where it's practically quiet and news is affecting everything, right? And so things can get really difficult and complex to predict, and we need the ability to kind of have these multitude of strategies, right? You can imagine all these miners have their own strategies, their own models that they're providing end clients or validators right now to try and predict the market. And so we can essentially the strategies will ebb and flow with the market, and we can understand which strategies are doing best based off the current market conditions and pick those to better trade for us based off those behaviors, right? The market behaviors. So it's the ability to adapt. So most trading firms are capable of handling various scenarios. They're either very conservative or they get a very aggressive approach. And it's very hard to kind of be able to automatically adapt to what's going on in the market. And so that's the beauty of what SN8 does, is it's going to be able to constantly adapt via these strategies, all these models competing as miners to the market conditions. And I think the last thing that Bittensor really brought was this incentivized pool for miner participation. Now, it's great to be able to create a decentralized ecosystem of miners, but why would they participate, right? Why would they contribute? And Bittensor really enables that via these incentivized pools, these marketplaces, which are naturally part of every subnet. So for us, we saw the kind of vision here of being able to create an incentivized decentralized marketplace where all of these miners can come to compete, and they're incentivized to do so. And so as a miner, you can essentially just get rewarded for providing your model. A lot of data scientists, a lot of ML engineers aren't necessarily looking to do the trading aspect and the difficulty of the trading aspect. They want to be able to provide and predict, and they concentrate on that solely. So that's really what that's going to enable them to do, and to be rewarded very handsomely, which we're going to talk about in a second. So how will we achieve this vision of being able to create the best trading strategy there is? It's a multi-step strategy. So one, leverage this power of Bittensor. Now, for those that have that background on Bittensor and what it is, I think that this is pretty straightforward in terms of the incentivized decentralized marketplace. But for those that don't, miners are going to be individual, eventually just ML teams or data science teams competing to try to provide models to compete in the network. And validators validate and pick the best models based off of what is going to happen in the future. So what we have is miners trying to predict what will happen 8 hours into the future for Bitcoin or for any really trade pair that we add in the future. And validators are the way that we're able to make it so that it's not gamed using the Bittensor ecosystem infrastructure is validators validate what will happen in the future. So miners are predicting what will happen in the future with these predictions, and then validators validate once the results come in based on what happened in the future, are able to say, hey, these are the miners that did the best. So it's a pretty bulletproof strategy in terms of miners providing predictions and validators validating what are the best predictions to reward those miners. So again, yeah, our whole goal here is a big component of what we're going to be doing here is supporting miners and incentivizing competition. So we understand in order to get where we want to get, miners need to feel like they're fully supported, and we need to be able to bring as much competition as we can to our subnet. So we need to be able to support our miners with strong documentation, Discord server, whatever we need to do to be able to provide them and enable them to create the best models possible. We need to do that, and that's really on us to do and incentivize that competition. And the last part is really, we are actually building our own base model. So we actually have it released right now, and we are continually iterating on it to make it better and better. But we are building an ML team inside of Taoshi to try and predict on these trade pairs and all these markets that will eventually release. And what you can see on this graph on the right is kind of showing what we're talking about here. You can see the algorithmic loss essentially over time continues to reduce when you're trying to predict on all these various trade pairs. You can see our base models loss continues to decrease right on top of that. So we're applying pressure to miners to improve. That's part of our strategy here is the base model will continually push miners to create better models. Competition naturally via the marketplace will push them to create better models. And we're going to see loss reduce over time and performance essentially increase over time. And you can see this idea of these mining teams, these, lone wolfing with this subnet isn't going to work great. So ideally, you're going to want to pair up with other data scientists, with other ML engineers to kind of form a team to create feature sets and to be able to compete in this subnet. And so these number of mining teams, which will eventually be, miners, individual miners, will be competing and increasing over time. And then the number of competitive and competent models will increase over time. So essentially, we want to see mining teams increase, models increase, loss decrease over time, meaning that we're getting better predictions. And this is going to take a little bit of time, but I think, and we are moving extremely fast, but it really is on us to push to get the miners to create very competitive models. And we understand that that is a big part of this, which isn't necessarily true in every other subnet to the degree that it is for us. So how are we going to support miners? So one part of what we're doing is we're going to be generating feature sets. So we're actually going to be working with SN3, which is the scraping net, to help develop feature sets for miners. So when we want to be able to gather various data sets and allow miners to train on them, we can request that SN3 setup and be able to gather that data for us, capture it, cache it, and so we can essentially ping for it whenever we'd like for SN8 and for our miners. That's the first part, is being able to generate very effective feature sets and be able to request that data. That's just another piece of what's so strong about the Bittensor community. And what we're building with this ecosystem is that the subnets will communicate and work together. So we are going to 100% leverage what SN3 has been building. We are already in talks to work with them to deliver feature sets. So that's the first part, is generate feature sets, enable our miners, help enable our miners to create better models. The second part is obviously building the models. So we've built infrastructure inside of our time series prediction subnet repository, actually, for miners to build their own models. So we've created infrastructure called in a script called miner training, where you can go in and you can actually define your own LSTM model, which is a machine learning model. And you can define however you would like to structure that. You can stack it, you can decide how you want to do it. And eventually there's going to be multiple avenues for various models to reduce bias on a single model. So ARIMA, RNN, there's going to be various models you can choose from and you can build using them. Testing models. So not only do we allow for miners to come in and build their models inside the repository, we allow them to test it too. So we are, we allow you to test against the base model we've made. We allow you to test against a variety of other models, and you can then actually take your model, after you've done testing it on the repository, you can take your model and go test it on testnet, potentially against other miners as well. So creating this infrastructure to not only build but also test your models, know kind of an expected performance on when you go to mainnet, that's going to be a big part of what we want to build to enable miners. Obviously, as I mentioned, with the test modeling, you want to be able to outcompete the base model. That's kind of a baseline. You're going to need to outcompete it along with other models. And so again, testing is going to include that. And then lastly, deploy to SN8. So making deployment really easy, providing better infrastructure, strong infrastructure to easily deploy your model to SN8. That's a part of this supporting infrastructure that we're building. The next part is the community hub. So today we actually released the Discord server Taoshi Community Hub to allow the collaboration of miners to build models on SN8. So again, as I mentioned in the beginning here, yes, you can build your own kind of custom model, and it could do quite well. We have miners that are already doing that, and the custom models are doing well. But I think if you start looking at the direction we're heading in and the amount of competition we're going to be the level of increasing competition over the next couple months, you're going to see lone wolfing will become very hard. And so the idea that using this hub to kind of work and collaborate with other miners, by working with them, you get to know them and you can start forming kind of groups or teams to better compete. That's really the goal of the community hub. So you can learn about various models. Other miners will contribute to the Discord server, and eventually you're going to be able to form teams because the incentive pool is already so large and will continue to grow that it's going to strongly incentivize you to continue to compete. So when I talk about incentivizing miners, as I mentioned, our first major goal here was to become the largest incentivized mining pool, decentralized incentivized mining pool in the world for the prediction of financial markets. And we've already achieved that. So as of right now, our mining pool is over $20 million in annualized payouts. And it's only been less than 2 weeks post-launch. So we are already the largest decentralized incentivized mining pool in the world. And so, again, we are going to strongly and heavily drive competition because of the size of this mining pool. And so, again, this is going to be driving you as a miner to hopefully create a team to go after this pool stronger. And we are going to be doing very heavy outreach in marketing to bring on the best. We want miners to come that are capable of, that already have a lot of time series prediction experience, and especially with machine learning, and to come after this $20 million kind of prize pool, you could say. And as it continues to increase, it's just going to be more incentive to come compete. So yes, I mean, teams are going, it's going to get competitive very, very quickly is the idea. So now that we have these models, once we have these models and they're highly effective at predicting Bitcoin and other altcoins and various markets, say financial markets, how are we going to enable people to use this? And so eventually there is going to be client apps where essentially someone can come and take the data from validators and use it for various circumstances. Say you want to create a hedge fund, say you want to do copy trading, etc. Short term, though, we already have two solutions in place that we're working on. One is a visualization trading dashboard. So people will be able to log in and they'll be able to see the predictions made. And the predictions you'll not only be able to see the visualization of the predictions, but you'll be able to, it'll automatically identify potential entry and exits using those predictions, which are constantly refreshing. So it's not like it becomes stale after a certain amount of time. It actually will continuously refresh to know what the predictions are telling you next, or if something changes, right? Because the market conditions are constantly changing. The refreshes will tell you if something has changed and what they're expecting. So you can see on the left, there's a nice graph where we've kind of overlaid on TradingView here and identified a potential entry and a potential exit using that entry, and that's based off the kind of modeling you can see in the red that's been shown. And the second part here, I would say, is automated trading infrastructure. So we've actually already built out the automated trading infrastructure from Tarvis Labs because we have experience in trading, because we have experience in automated trading. For ourselves with our funding, that we were able to re-leverage that for the purposes of Taoshi and client applications. And so we're going to enable automated trading infrastructure to be runnable, and you'll be able to plug into various exchanges to leverage the power of these predictions to automate trades. So we already have connectors to Binance, Woo, and Bybit. They're already done. So it's a matter of, again, just getting the predictions to a place where they're competent and capable of predicting markets effectively. And we have a strategy for getting there, as we mentioned, with incentivizing miners and getting stronger miners. So what is our upcoming roadmap? So we have a lot of things we're doing. Again, we're moving very aggressively here, but Q4 2023, we've already knocked off some of these things. So base model V3 is out. Mainnet launch occurred. We launched the community hub today. Taoshi dashboard has been launched. And with that dashboard, which I'll talk about on the next slide, you're able to see a variety of graphs and information from the subnet exported. Base model V4, which we're working on right now, targeted marketing efforts and outreach. As I mentioned, we want to get really aggressive with bringing on the best to our subnet and making it the most competitive landscape possible for predicting these trade pairs. Beginning the development on a trading dashboard, as I mentioned before, you're going to be able to log in. You're going to be able to see the when you can take entries and exits based off the predictions. So that's going to be a endeavor that we're beginning on. And then the integration with SN3 to prepare data sets. So as I mentioned earlier, feature sets is going to be a big component. It's one of the biggest difficulties when you're creating ML models, effective ML models, is preparing these feature sets and leveraging SN3 with the power of Bittensor. We're going to be able to create that very quickly and effectively. So we're already going to be working with SN3 to create these feature sets to enable miners. In Q1, we will release another version of the base model, and that one should be over 50% more effective than V4, and I'll talk about what that means in a second. Build an initial trading strategy. So as part of this modeling, one part is the predictions. The second part is a trading strategy around those predictions. So we're going to build an initial trading strategy, and we have a lot more things that we have planned around trading strategies, actually. I don't want to divulge too much here, but there's a lot of uniqueness with what we are planning on doing versus anyone has done before. specifically around trading strategies. So again, predictions is one part, strategies is another. And so we are going to be tackling both sides of this. Next is completing the trading dashboard. So you'll, again, be able to log in, view trades, receive alerts, receive SMS notifications, emails, etc. On the trades that the upcoming potential positions you could take. Diversified model creation. Yeah, so we really want to drive home the idea of having teams compete and not lone wolfing. And so enabling Community Hub and supporting them in that is a big initiative and going to be a big milestone for us. And the last one is the feature set creation for SN3 from SN3. So begin the integration in Q4. We'll have the feature sets fully complete in Q1, hopefully early Q1, and we'll continue to drive and iterate on those feature sets. We'll receive requests from miners on what feature sets they want. We'll work with SN3 on creating those feature sets and bringing them into the SN8 community and the Community Hub to leverage with the infrastructure we've built. So as I mentioned, with subnet performance and improvement, we are going to be looking to improve this very, very quickly. Currently, the performance is weak, and I think that's expected when you first start. Some people got really excited on Twitter about some of the predictions made, and that's great. But really, we're really in our infancy here, and I think over the next 3 to 6 months, you're going to see a massive improvement in the performance of SN8, and it should be at a place where it's fully tradable. We're going to have the ability to not only monitor the subnet's performance. What I mean by subnet performance is actually RMSE. It's a decaying RMSE model where the nearest predictions or the nearest candles or intervals that that miners are predicting are more important than the ones far in the future because of constant refreshing for information. So that's the model we use for RMSE, and that's what's being shown on this chart. So we're going to see this not only increase or decrease over time, which is essentially saying, hey, the value is getting closer to what actually happened live. We're going to also be able to track the actual performance of the trading strategies. So we're going to be able to say, hey, this is how much you would have made in Q1 2024 if you had been running the prediction models. So that's where we're getting to. We're trying to aggressively approach this to create better and better trading strategies on top of the predictions. And so that's going to be something that we'll be displaying on our dashboard as well over the next 3 to 6 months. So some concluding thoughts here. Really, I think we kind of struck gold, I would say, in the fact that we are still really early on Bittensor, right? I mean, right when subnets launched, we were able to jump on top of it. And we really we saw the vision here of what we could build to essentially create the best trading strategy, create the best prediction network in the world. And that's really what we're doing. So leveraging how powerful Bittensor is a huge part of what we are and what we're building. So we just want to enable how powerful it is, right? We want to just continue to drive that. And the more that we can unlock how powerful to drive incentivization of the mining pool, to drive testing, even in terms of infrastructure with testnet. These are things that we want to do. So Bittensor is really enabling us to be this powerful engine that we're creating. And obviously, this is something I've talked about through this whole thing, but we are able to create this marketplace, in a marketplace of competing strategies and models individualized to every one of these teams, is going to create the best product. Like no one will likely be able to compete with the brain power of all these teams competing simultaneously, providing their models to the network and trying to predict all these different market conditions. It'd be insanely hard and unlikely that any individual team would ever be able to compete with this product. And lastly, we're really just beginning with financial markets, especially with Bitcoin. We will expand to the broader financial markets with more trade pairs and eventually get into Forex, where we know we actually have partners waiting in the wings for this to be on euro versus the dollar. They want to use this immediately. We're getting into a lot of early kind of partnership talks. And so our long-term vision is not just even financial markets in the world of that, but beyond that, to more markets, especially when we're talking predicting sports outcomes. I think that would be another big market that we're going to be very interested in. But once we have the mining community shifting their attention or adding another market, will just be another competitive landscape that they're able to apply to. And so that's the idea, is the power of the mining community will really drive forward the outcomes here. Cool. That's everything I had. I'm happy to field questions. Let me stop streaming here. Answer any questions, talk. Hopefully everyone was able to hear me that whole time. I wasn't just talking to the abyss. So yeah, it was really excited about everything that not only we're building, but the future of Bittensor. I mean, if we think about just high level what Bittensor has done, they've enabled subnets. Subnets are enabling validators to get that data, and validators are then empowered to share that data however they want. And I think that that's just going to build a massive community. And I think me and James were actually talking about this a little bit before this call, but it's really hard unless you're really deep in the community. I think sometimes it's hard to see how big this can really be. And so we're just really excited and happy to be a part of the Bittensor journey and continue to not only build this subnet, but future subnets.
Well, thank you so much, Arash. This was fantastic. You were not talking into an abyss.
Good.
Everyone could hear your great presentation loud and clear. It would be great to open the floor to anyone who has questions. If anyone wants to just unmute, hopefully there's not a ton of mutual unmutes. But if anyone has a question, feel free to just ask away.
Arash, what emoji do you want for your Discord channel?
That was not the first question I was expecting.
I have many more, but I just thought that it was relevant at this moment.
I don't know. I'll let you choose, Con. You go
Rocket
ahead.
I feel like after this presentation, it probably should be Rocket Ship. I actually I missed the first part of the presentation. I'm really sorry. But I had one question about what exactly is the scoring function for prediction? It's like a mean squared error, or you must have talked about that. But what was it exactly?
Yeah, it's RMSE. It's actually a decaying RMSE. So the the predictions that are upcoming are slightly more important than the ones further in the future. And the reason for that idea is because the constant refreshing by clients, which will likely happen, is going to make it so that what's going to happen more recently is going to be just more important than what's going to happen far into the future. So it's going to be important in terms of the trading strategy that we can develop.
In practice, with trading strategies, is mean squared. It's mean squared error, right? Or it's root mean squared error. I'm not sure.
Root. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And in practice, do strategies have like a specific equation that's different than that maybe has something to do with the way in which you should trade, or I think it's going to be less on the RMSE is really just to try to figure out the predictions that are closest to what happens live and reward on that part. But in terms of the trading strategy will be more in terms of combining these predictions together. So say take the top miners based off recent trends, being able to one, identify recent trends, and two, say, hey, let's take the top predictions from these miners over the last X period and combine them into you can think of a kind of taking like the standard deviation on both ends, like lower and upper. Kind of, if you're familiar at all with Bollinger Bands, essentially creating a band of where we think the price is going to go based off these combination of predictions, and then being able to create trading strategies that way based off of how large the move is. So it's going to be that's kind of the strategy employed is what we're building right now. Is there something that to like when it comes to trading a particular index though?
is having the closest prediction over most of the time not exactly the most important thing. It's like more about getting it right when there's a big swing or something. And how does the reward model that you're using take that into account? Like, is there a lot of depth to this question? Is your mean squared error just kind of like the best you can do for now, or is this like a very deep problem?
No, that's a great question. I think one of the big things that we're really going to look into here next is kind of potentially rewarding more on scenarios where there's those bigger moves and being able to predict them correctly, right? The magnitude of the move and how close you are on those kind of larger moves versus smaller moves. So if the movement is just kind of sideways, it's important to know that, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to take a position. And so the adjustment of how we reward based off that will likely change over time. But there's been, it is something that I've thought about a lot. I don't want to jump to exactly how we'll do that yet. Definitely want to take some time. So in the beginning right now, I think it'll just be, we're just kind of rewarding based off movement. But because we are asking miners to predict on such a small interval with the 5-minute chart, and it is quite a lot of intervals. They're predicting 8 hours into the future, so it's not a small time frame. But there are periods where it is sideways, and so how can we kind of reduce rewards essentially for these kind of periods where it's easier to predict versus harder to predict, right? And
right. It looked like most of the predictions that were being created were just kind of sideways movements, and that was that an outcome of the reward landscape that was just the best thing that people could predict because it turned out to be the most accurate. Interesting.
I would say that there's two things going on there. One, I think we are still really early, and so the models are still just getting better, and that's just going to take some time. And and that's kind of why I also don't want to jump into changing the reward landscape yet, because I want to see, I kind of want to see how it plays out first. But essentially, we need to remove this idea of, and again, this is just because we've launched, within a week of pretty much launching and trying to onboard miners. But the models need to get better first, and I need to see where the models are and kind of landscape of that. And then it's very easy to identify noise, and essentially kind of once we've identified noise, understand how we want to better tackle it. The idea, the number one concern I have, I would say short term, is just the removal of noise as something that is even somewhat competitive. And I think that just comes down to how good the models are, right? So again, I definitely know what you're talking about, and I understand what you're talking about when it comes to rewarding models that are able to predict bigger moves. But if they're constantly thinking that it's a bigger move and it's not, that's also not great. So there's both sides, right? So I kind of I don't want to jump too quickly into thinking that we need to provide bigger incentive or rewards for more accurately deciding that a big move or accurately predicting a big move. Because if the model is trying to predict a big move 70% of the time, and it's right one of the times, and then it gets a bigger reward of that, I'm not quite sure how that affects the landscape yet. So again, I want to first see the models come out. I've actually, inside of our infrastructure with the repository, I've added base models, base miners, quote unquote, and the base miners actually output noise. So as your model has to be able to outcompete noise. I mean, that's like baseline. And I think once we give it a month or two, I assume that a lot of the noise that's from these various miners will just disappear.
Awesome. Thanks, Rush. It was great presentation.
Of course. Thank you.
I got one more question. We have time.
Yeah,
go ahead.
This is for maybe some of the newer folks at Bitensor. I'd love to hear a little more, or if you could speak from your point of view, like how Bitensor works under the hood, and then how you guys are using it in their, like how you guys as a subnet are using it to enable doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So first off, I would say, ever since the template came out, the subnet template, it's
been pretty easy to create a subnet. I feel there's little things here and there, obviously, that come up with anything that you're building, but I would say the template made things pretty streamlined and easier to create. And under the hood, really our biggest thing, and Const knows this because I've had many conversations with him about it, is to make sure that there's no chance of gaming the system. So under the hood, really, miners can create their own models. They're going to be able to deploy their own models. We've built the infrastructure inside the repository to allow them to do that and plug into their essentially their script that runs that connects onto the network. So effectively being able to do that. The validator side, we are able to use the validation to ensure that there's no chance of gaming because they're predicting the future. So that was the number one thing, is we want to make sure, and the number one concentration, it really is for any subnet, is to ensure that your system can't, your marketplace, your decentralized marketplace can't be gamed by any entity. And so that was a big part of what we're doing under the hood. And another part I would say under the hood is that that most people probably don't know is validators actually keep track on their machines of all miner performances. So all historical records of how a miner performed against every trade pair on every topic or domain, right? Financial markets, Bitcoin, then how all the miners performed, for example, on that time frame, the 5-minute chart, are all stored on the validator's machine. And the reason for that is there's a possibility in the future where we might want to open this up and do more advanced things. And so, the UMA consensus is going to be able to be held and maintained a lot through that for future use cases too. So a really cool thing there that we added in, and that's actually how we were able to get our dashboard up so quickly, was that the information of historical performances by miners and the network is held on the validators' machines. And then we're aggregating it, we're kind of aggregating that information into monthly, quarterly, annual kind of files, so making it stay smaller on their machine. But yeah, some really cool stuff. I mean, I would say the Bittensor infrastructure and network handles so much for us that it's really about ensuring that marketplace, the natural state of a marketplace is maintained, which is not being able to be gamed, making sure competition stays strong, things like that. So our efforts are really on increasing the difficulty.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Arash, we're about 15 minutes over time, so don't want to take. Based on this presentation, it seems like you've been burning the midnight oil.
I definitely thought this was an hour long, so I was like, cool, we got 15 more minutes.
Nah. Okay.
Is it possible to address some questions in the chat?
Oh, I didn't see any. I didn't look. Sorry. I don't even know where the chat is.
Yeah, we can. I can
just read mine off. Probably a newbie question, but I'm trying to think about like longer term, hedge funds or something, people who have predictive power getting in on this and being worried about their potential loss of like proprietary information or their secret sauce by participating as miners on the network. Just to confirm, are they like, you're only submitting your predictions as a miner, right? There's no way to figure out anything else about your model.
That's correct. Cool. Yeah, you are not providing your proprietary model's information or infrastructure in any way that's really decipherable by like a validator or something. It's just literally the predictions that you are making on the trade pair. And miners can choose to stop working on another good question would be, I'll just answer it myself and pose it, is what happens if miners leave? Well, that's the point of the base model and the beauty of a decentralized marketplace. One, the base model will keep up competition. And two, I love this idea, this analogy of what this decentralized marketplace is more like a hydra. You cut off one head, another one grows. I mean, it's just the nature of the marketplace. So the competition will stay there regardless, because difficulty will continue to increase in multiple ways.
Could I go with a question?
Shoot.
Okay, cool. So if this vision really comes to fruition and this becomes the sort of best and due to its nature most accessible trading predictor, won't the flock of people coming to use it make like sort of ruin its edge if everyone's just happy?
I think that's a great question. So we are not the owners of who gets access to the data. I think that's a big component here, and it's something that I'm going to be probably you'll be hearing me talk about in the future with some projects that will probably be coming up. But the validators really are the ones that get access to the data, and so they're going to be the ones that get to dictate who gets access to it. And so it's likely long term not going to be everyone getting access. It's going to be whoever the validators enable to get access. And that's probably going to be determined by some sort of marketplace in itself. So I would say that's the first part. Second, typically these liquidity, the size of these markets, I would say, crypto is relatively smaller in terms of the market it has, in terms of the volume it has. But I would say, when you start getting into Forex, which is where a lot of big heavy traders want to trade, the liquidity there is practically endless. I mean, our subnet won't move the market. So yeah, the impact, it would have to be like, probably hundreds of billions of dollars, tens to hundreds of billions of dollars in volume from the subnet to move the market significantly. So.
Cool. Thank you.
Of course.
Any final questions?
Yeah, here's one question. So, in the future point of view, the prediction will be centering around gambling, weather forecast, and more. Not only in forex or cryptocurrency, it is now. So, here's one question. So, will this single base model support all cases? So, or do you expect to register more subnets accordingly? I mean, for each one individually. So, what is your long-term vision for this?
Yeah, when it comes to the long-term vision is well, I would say over the next year or two. Let's just concentrate on financial markets right now. Around all those trade pairs, the base model, we'll have a base model for the various trade pairs that we create. So we're going to have a competitive model that'll go in, say, once we're done with Bitcoin, to Ethereum, to other altcoins, to Forex. And so we'll drive competition with the base model. And so we'll have a base model for every trade pair we release. And because there's going to have familiarity with how to model from all the miners, flipping to another trade pair should be easier than switching to a whole new market, right? Which is like, saying going to weather forecasting. So in just the world of financial markets, which will be what we cover for quite a while, there's going to be a lot of familiarity over time, and our base model will continue to grow. The number of them will grow with the number of trade pairs. And also timeframes, by the way. It's not necessarily set in stone that we only do the 5-minute. There could be the possibility we do more timeframes. So there's a lot of application here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Arash, one final question from me. You have these integrations with Binance, Woo, and others. How easy was it to
not easy
to get and what was the pushback?
So I would say the integrations, like to be able to integrate with them was not hard. You just get an API key. I would say to be able to automate effectively trading and making sure that things don't fall through in the middle of a trade because you're dealing with funds. You don't want to be just like randomly, losing sight of what the position is. There could be communication errors with the exchange. Your position could not get completely filled because of liquidity. There's all these factors that come into play when you create trade bots, effective trade bots. And so a lot of that was actually quite difficult and took quite a while. So that I would say that infrastructure took building out probably 6 months by itself.
to make it so that we built a way to do that effectively, where trades properly open and close, and if there's interruptions from the exchanges, that's handled and things like that. There's all sorts of issues that can occur.
Yeah, for sure. And on what scale do these exchanges plan to leverage Taoshi initially?
So it's going to be up to the users, right? So we're creating just the use case where essentially they're both the trading infrastructure and the dashboard are kind of client apps. I mean, they're going to be usable in the beginning by whoever signs up and wants to use them, and they can just choose to add it to their account, right, to automate trading. It's going to be like point and click, boom, 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 set up and run. In the beginning, over time, as we kind of shift gears and some of these other projects come alive and validators kind of choose where they're willing to give the data, I think things will shift where, this trading infrastructure we provided is, let's just say, a single application that anybody can leverage and try to run via a request node and charge at their own rate competitively in a marketplace among other nodes to try and get more validator attention. So like we are just creating kind of these wrappers, which is the trading dashboard and the trading infrastructure to plug into our subnet. But at the end of the day, how they get the data out of the subnet is going to be a competitive landscape that we are not we are not going to be the ones, likely longer term, running these client apps. We're going to enable the community to run these client apps and competitively try to price the client apps. That's the goal.
Makes sense.
If that makes sense. Sorry, I know it's it's kind of vague right now. I feel.
No, well, I think that's going to be a lot of the next 12 to 24 months as these subnets begin to mature, if you will, and there's going to be a need, especially as, we're probably a few weeks away from the first subnet getting pruned, and it's going to get increasingly competitive, and if subnets aren't actually driving real revenue, then it's going to be bye-bye. So it's exciting.
I think something me and you talked about, James, is just two things I just wanted to talk about from the subnet ownership side. When that's been like, I think one is learning to scale. I think that's going to be a big component of this, hiring really strong talent, growing very fast, growing with the speed at which Bittensor is growing. I think that's a challenge in itself as an owner, kind of switching more into potentially more of a management role and managing individuals to accomplish bigger goals. A lot of us subnet owners are strong dev background, and I think adding that with creating a really formidable team is going to be really important. And the second part is how to switch your subnet into a revenue producer is going to be a big second piece. So I think both of those are going to be really important as subnet owners to think about.
Certainly, and I think the logic is going to look a lot more like, we have traditional startups who have been reaching out and who we're working with quite closely, who want to launch their businesses that are currently in stealth via subnets, right? Where the subnet is effectively like you're doing,
right?
Like you've shown everyone, the subnet's the tech stack, and then selling the tech stack, that's not necessarily novel. So it'll be cool to see more talent continue to flow in.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be for subnets. It's just going to be really about creating that community and strengthening that community, and that's where our value lies. And then knowing how to output for value. It's on both sides, right? We are kind of the facilitators.
Yeah, certainly.
Anyway, that's how I view myself. Like. That's the whole point of decentralization. We need to facilitate the best we can as the kind of middle owners.
Precisely. Well, you're doing a fantastic job, and thank you so much for coming on today and spending an hour with us.
Absolutely.
I'm sure this has been recorded. I'm sure everyone enjoyed it. And if there's no final questions, I think this is a good time to wrap up.
Perfect. Thanks for having me, James. Thanks for the questions, Const. And thanks for everyone else for asking questions. Love talking Bittensor. So if you DM me, I will likely respond. And if you have a subnet idea, I'd love to
bounce ideas. So just to support. So typically, if you message me with a subnet idea, I typically try to get back to you with my thoughts if you're looking for it. So just want to throw that out there too.
Amazing. Thanks, Arash.
Sure thing. All right. Thanks, guys.